Welcome, welcome. Today, we're talking about the ultimate life hack, forgiveness. So, I have a question for you. Who have you not forgiven that you would need to forgive in order to move forward? Now, you might ask, and some people say that forgiveness isn't essential, but I would I wouldn't argue it absolutely 100% is. The only way we can feel at the higher levels of emotions is if we have no resentment towards anybody else, because we see that everybody else in our life is simply an extension of us, and that's what love is. And today we're going to talk about how learning to forgive others and learning to forgive yourself can open up everything else in your life. So, let's get to it. Now, actually, we'll move all this over here. Hope everyone's well. So, forgiveness. What does that mean? Well, essentially, it's the idea of letting go of any resentments, regrets, or really any type of wrath. Now, wrath is a very interesting concept, and this is actually one I want to talk about, is because the most dangerous type of anger isn't anger in and of itself. It's not this idea of getting mad, because the reason we feel and experience anger is because a boundary has been violated, and anger is a response to let us know that we've been encroached on, something has happened that we're not okay with, and that we're supposed to defend this boundary. Now, the reason wrath is a little different is wrath is what I would call justified anger. Justified anger meaning that by your own value system, any response done in anger would be okay. And the reason the wrath has been characterized as a sin, even though, I use religious language, not necessarily because I'm religious, but because a lot of people understand sort of that religious terminology. But the reason wrath is considered one of the seven deadly sins is because when you have justified anger, what that does is that is a command for justice. And when we take justice into our own hands, what that means is we then, like the person who hurt us, we then move in a way where we are acting within the world. And what that means is that rather than responding, we're reacting. So we're not responding, we're reacting. And when you react, what that means is the person who did the thing, right? So if someone does the thing that incurs your wrath. So let's say someone hurts you, right? Or they sin, right? So let's say someone hurts you. This then changes into your wrath. You then feel this justified anger. You then take justice into your own hands, and then you react to that instead of responding. And then what happens is, as a result of that, remember, going back to our third degree model, spirit, give that guy some rest. Spirit, mind, and body. Going back to our original thing, what is going to be created, the creation, is just going to create more wrath. That's what's going to happen. Because the emotion which we acts like a seed that we plant in the ground of our mind and within the environment. And when we plant that seed and we water it and we nurture it with our emotions, that grows. And then that growth becomes more of whatever you put in. So if you put in an apple seed, you're going to get more apples, right? Now, let me tell you a really personal story of mine where I learned this principle. So there was a time when I had just finished my second book and I'd published it out. And actually, because I was working in a pace, it was the time when The Girl and the Beast which I wrote ages ago, was actually selling, and I wasn't the strongest writer, I don't believe, and I was working on my first full-blown novel. But I had already written 2 of them. And even though I hadn't done anything on Amazon, I didn't quite know what I was doing. I had posted them on Amazon and they were selling and I was making money from them. And that was like 10 years ago. That was a long time ago. And it was getting more every single month. The sales were improving, right? And that's because at the time when I first did it, I was acting from a sense of courage. I was writing and I was being faithful, right? And I believed that if it worked, it would be good. Now, something that happened is while I was doing this, I had another job. And that other job, I was watching after these kids, and I would get really frustrated. And I always thought like they were distracting me from my work. But in reality, my work with the writing was actually improving and going along when I actually looked at what was happening. But I felt very strange and in a very new territory. So insecure, in fact, that some people, because they said at my age, I shouldn't be watching other people's kids, I should be having kids of my own. And so because of that, I started to let these other voices get in my head. And I went and I made the worst decision I ever made. And I got married to someone that I didn't love. And I got married to her because of insecurity and because I didn't feel like I was good enough. So I get a sense of unworthiness, right? And what that created was a decision that has so profoundly hurt my life. And I don't blame her at all, even though she did some of her things. But what she did and what happened was a creation of my own doing. Because I acted instead of faith when I was writing my books, the money was going up. When instead of going based off of that, let's just substitute wrath, I acted from a place of fear. And then when I acted from a place of fear, it was a justified fear because I was older, I was watching other people's kids, I should be doing it, right? So I took justice into my own hands, and rather than following my heart and doing what I knew was right, I reacted to that emotion. And what that did is it created a situation where the marriage fell apart, the books and everything that I had built before, literally the month I got married, it went from the very top, 100%, like the highest it had ever been sold, to 0. It bottomed out completely bottomed out. And I wasn't even doing anything different, just the energy shifted. And then because of that, I was living in a life based off of fear. And it took me years to get out of that cycle of fear because I made such a critical decision based in that fear. And so what it did is it created a life and a circumstance where, and it got really bad. Like I got thrown in jail. I got beaten up by cops for shit I didn't do. For things I didn't do. Like it was a complete mess. And it was because I planted fear in my heart and I moved based on that fear. And it was only until I started working and coming back to myself that I realized the emotion which you plant, regardless of the action, is what life will create more of. And so understanding this principle, it's really easy to see why for a lot of us, wrath is the biggest stumbling block on our way to joy because resentments and regrets really, really hold us back. And one of the best things I ever did was when I apologized to, obviously, my ex-wife, even though she'd done a lot of things, and she never apologized to me, but I don't need that. I went and asked for her forgiveness and offered my own. And then I had earlier done an experiment where I went through and I found every single person that I could have offended or that I had hurt or had any issue with in any way, and I apologized to them. And when I did that, it was like a giant weight was lifted off my shoulders. And I've felt amazing since then. Even my lowest lows now are higher than my highest highs were back then because I've learned to forgive myself and forgive others. I'm going to check the video and make sure that it's not being silly because the camera went beep, beep, beep. So it's going to run out of power. So we'll do our thing quick. But anyway, so the basic principle stands. that which we plant in the ground of our spirit will populate, right? So, because remember, that's 80% of reality right here. And then you have 18 in your mind, and then 2% in the body, and then the temporal reality, the physical reality, right? And so the reality is that which we put in our minds, that which we put in our spirit will grow in our minds and then manifest in the physical reality. That's the basic principle. So when someone does something here, we now can change the whole equation when we choose to forgive. And why is this so important? Because when we choose to forgive, that is vibrating at the higher level of acceptance. So if you guys know, remember the Hawkins scale, down at the bottom, we have, here, let me get this right. So I'll do this over here. Down at the bottom of the Hawkins scale, we have shame. And then when you go farther up, you have anger, right? But when you're able to move past that anger, and then you move into courage, you're now in the place where the mind can really take place. And then when the mind is able to take place, you then get to the highest of mastering reasoning, and then you move into acceptance. But in order to accept, you have to forgive. But once you're able to accept and forgive, oopsies, now you're into these higher level of vibrations, right? And now from going into acceptance and reasoning, now you're able to feel joy, love, peace. Because you've forgiven your brothers. This is one of the reasons why in the Lord's Prayer, again, religion is one of the things they covered this. They talk about how we ask God to forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. That's in the Lord's Prayer. The reason that's so essential is because part of learning how to forgive enables for those higher level emotions to take online. Because remember, that which you plant in the ground is what grows. So when you plant forgiveness, what happens is in your mind, and you are going to have to start justifying why you forgive. And then when you justify your forgiveness, that enables you to, for instance, see people as human beings who are fallible, just like you are. And so as you offer forgiveness to others, you are in fact offering forgiveness to yourself. This is the principle of grace, right? This is the next step we take right after in order to find sovereignty. After we have sovereignty, we then move on to grace, which is the fourth level, right? In the 5th degree model of the 7 primordial forces. And when we master sovereignty and we move into grace and we forgive, that allows us to now start feeling these higher level emotions. We haven't necessarily mastered them yet, but when we're able to understand those emotions and we can experience them fully, now we're having real change. Because when you forgive, you're exacting justice by your hands. But the thing is, now you're giving it to the universe, you're giving it to God, you're letting it go. So when you do nothing, because you've forgiven, now you are acting within, you're responding, you're not reacting. But because you're not reacting, physical reality will begin to react to that. And then when physical reality says, oh, well, he's forgiven, everything's fine, everything's kosher, what then begins to reflect into your reality? A reality where the transgression, the hurt, is no more. Right? And I know this is a really tall order because we might say there are physical realities that are really, really intense. And I've had my own experiences that I shared, but I really want to share a principle. And it was with it was this book. It was about a woman who she went to the Rwanda. She experienced the Rwandan genocide, right? And she was living in Rwanda at the time. And she saw her entire family get killed and murdered by these people, by these men. and she was locked in a bathroom all by herself with a bunch of people, and she would just sit and pray to God all day. It was one of the most intense books I've ever read in my life. And when she met the people who murdered her family, she forgave them because she was able to see how much God loved that man. And I remember, since reading the book, my goal in life has been able to reach that level of forgiveness. Now, obviously, I am terrified of having that tested, right? Because I don't want someone to murder my family, right? And if that happened to me now, I wouldn't be at that level of forgiveness. I'm being frank. But I hope to one day. Because the idea is to have that level of love for people where you can forgive them and see them as unconditional children of God, or just that connection of inevitable spirit. That's what true love comes to, right? And when we're able to do that, where we can let go of any resentment, that means nothing holds us back from our true destiny. Everything supports us and moves us forward. Even the pain, even the trials, even the hurt moves us towards our place towards love. And then if we are creative, if we want to write books, if we want to make movies, if we want to build a business, even when there's challenges or things that happen along the way, because we're able to forgive, we're able to move forward, and we have that power and that capacity because we've mastered forgiveness. And this is why it is the ultimate life hack. Knowing how to ask for forgiveness by saying sorry is essential. And knowing how to give forgiveness by saying I forgive you are the two most important aspects of life that nobody talks about. In the Ho'oponopono prayer, so this is getting pretty full here. I hope you're all taking notes. I'm going to take a nice little eraser. But in the Ho'oponopono prayer, there are 4 components in the Ho'oponopono that make it work. But the 2 ones in the middle are kind of what I want to talk about. Now, if you guys don't know what Ho'oponopono is, we'll have another lesson fully on it. But Ho'oponopono, it's a Hawaiian prayer that basically heals the body, heals the mind, heals the soul. And there's a really awesome researcher on it by Dr. Aliaki Akala. I'll actually make a video about it. But in this, we learn, it's basically 4 phrases. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. And thank you. What this prayer is essentially doing is it's helping people bridge the gap from acceptance into joy, love, and peace. Because when you move into this place of acceptance, we accept and understand that we are not perfect. And oftentimes when we're offering forgiveness to people, we have to say sorry for forgetting that other people are human beings too. And so part of forgiving them is recognizing we ourselves need forgiveness as well for all the things we've done, because we're, human beings, make mistakes and we hurt other people. But those mistakes don't take away from our perfection. They're actually what make it possible, because it is only through that pain and difficulty that we even have the capacity to heal and learn how to let go. If we never made mistakes, there would be nothing to let go of, and no one would ever learn how to do this. So this is part of the